The message came at midnight, Earth time. Admiral Park Doan stood alone on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, watching the stars through the massive viewport. Behind him, the blue glow of Neptune filled half the sky. It was peaceful here, far from Earth, far from the noise of politics and fear. He had spent 30 years in space, and moments like this still took his breath away. Then the alarm sounded. Admiral, his communications officer, called out, "Priority transmission." "It's coming from everywhere, sir. Every relay station in the sector is broadcasting it." Park turned slowly. He was a tall man, his black hair now gray at the temples, his face marked by old scars and older worries. "Put it through." The holographic display flickered to life. A figure appeared, tall, thin, made entirely of what looked like living crystal. Light moved through its body like blood through veins. Park recognized the species immediately. The Valith, one of the 12 ruling races of the Galaxy Council. Tension, human civilization, the crystal being spoke. Its voice was cold, like wind through an empty cave. "This message comes from the Galaxy Council, rulers of the Orion Arm for 50,000 of your years. We have watched your species with growing concern." Park felt his jaw tighten. Around him, his bridge crew had gone silent. "Your expansion has been too aggressive. Your weapons development has exceeded acceptable limits. Your refusal to accept observer status threatens the stability we have maintained for millennia." The crystal figure pulsed with cold blue light. "You have 90 standard cycles to comply with the following demands." The list appeared beside the figure. "Dismantle all military vessels. Surrender all colonies beyond the Sol system. Accept permanent observer status under Council supervision. Submit all technology for review and limitation. Failure to comply," the Valith continued, "will result in the complete neutralization of your species. This is not a negotiation. This is a notification. You have been warned." The transmission ended. For a long moment, no one on the bridge moved. Then Captain Yoon Hannah stepped forward from her station. She was younger than Park, barely 34, but she had the sharpest mind in the fleet. Her eyes were hard as she looked at the empty display. "They just threatened to kill everyone on Earth," she said quietly. "Every human being alive." Park nodded slowly. "Yes, they did, sir. ... Lieutenant Kim Taiwu, the youngest officer on the bridge, spoke up. His voice was shaking. "What do we do?" Park walked to the central command chair, but did not sit. Instead, he stood there, hands clasped behind his back, staring at the stars. "Captain Yoon," he said, "pull up the historical archives. Show me what happened to the last species that received this kind of ultimatum." Hannah's fingers flew across her console. A moment later, data filled the display. Names of species Park had never heard of. Dates going back thousands of years. And beside each entry, the same word, submitted. 17 species before us, Hannah reported. All of them received similar demands. All of them agreed to the Council's terms. And what happened to them after? Hannah was quiet for a moment. "They're still there, sir." But they were nothing. Servant races. They maintain the Council's stations. They mine the Council's resources. They have no military, no advanced technology, no voice in galactic affairs. They exist because the Council allows them to exist. Park turned to face his crew. 20 officers, all watching him, all waiting for him to tell them what to do. Some looked afraid. Some looked angry. None of them looked ready to surrender. "They've made a mistake," Park said. "They think we're like the others. They think we'll look at their big fleet and their ancient history and their ultimatum, and we'll fall to our knees like good little servants." He walked forward. Stopping in the center of the bridge, humanity spent 1,000,000 years climbing to the top of the food chain on one of the deadliest planets in this galaxy. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars. We split the atom. We conquered space. And we did all of it, not because we're the strongest or the fastest or the oldest. He looked at each officer in turn. "We did it because we don't give up. Ever." Captain Yoon stepped forward. "The Council has over 10,000 warships. We have maybe 200, I know. They've ruled this part of the galaxy for longer than humans have existed as a species. I know, if we fight them, we might lose everything. Park smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. And if we don't fight them, we lose everything anyway. At least this way, we go down swinging. He turned to his communications officer. Open a secure channel to Earth. Get me President Choi. Tell her the Council has declared war on humanity. He paused. Tell her it's time to declare war back on Earth. President Choi Yoon-ji received the news at dawn. She was 52 years old. A former military commander herself, with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much death. She listened to Admiral Park's report without interruption, her face perfectly calm. When he finished, she asked only one question. How long do we have? 90 cycles. About 3 months. And if we refuse their terms, they'll come for us. Every ship they have. President Choi stood and walked to the window of her office. Below her, the city of New Seoul stretched to the horizon, 30 million people living their lives, raising their children, dreaming their dreams. None of them knew yet that the galaxy had just sentenced them to death. My grandmother survived the unification wars, she said quietly. She used to tell me stories about those days, how everyone said Korea was too small, too weak, too damaged to survive, how the whole world expected us to fail. She turned back to face the screen. We didn't fail. Oh, ma'am. We didn't. Humanity has never surrendered to anyone, Admiral. Not to nature. Not to ourselves. And we're not going to surrender to a bunch of ancient aliens who think they can threaten us into submission. She sat back down, her eyes burning with cold fire. Call the War Council. Every admiral, every general, every scientist we have 3 months to prepare for a fight against an enemy that's been winning for 50,000 years. She leaned forward. Let's show them why that winning streak is about to end. The message went out that night. To every human colony, every ship, every station scattered across the stars. The Galaxy Council had given humanity an ultimatum. Humanity had given one right back. 3 weeks after the ultimatum, President Choi Yoon-ji stood before a camera in the broadcast center beneath Luna Command. The room was small and cold, filled with equipment and nervous technicians. But when the red light came on, she seemed to grow larger, filling the frame with quiet strength. To the Galaxy Council and all who serve it, she began, her voice carrying across 1,000 frequencies. Humanity does not negotiate under threat. We do not surrender what we have built. You have given us 90 cycles. We give you the same. Withdraw your ultimatum, or learn why every predator on our homeworld learned to fear us. The broadcast lasted 43 seconds. It changed the galaxy. On the Council homeworld of Valeth Prime, the crystalline rulers watched the message in stunned silence. No species had ever refused before. The very concept was so foreign that several council members had to watch the recording 3 times before they believed it was real. They are insane, one of them said. They must be destroyed immediately. Patience, another replied. Let them have their moment of defiance. It will make their submission all the sweeter. But not everyone agreed. In the shadows of the council chamber, representatives from 3 species, the Valeth, the Sindari and the Komori, exchanged knowing glances. They had their own reasons to hope that humanity might survive, far from the Council's reach. Admiral Park Do-eun was already preparing for war. The human fleet was small, yes. 200 warships against the Council's 10,000. But those ships carried secrets that the Council had never seen. For 300 years, humanity had expanded into space, with one eye always watching for threats. Every ship, every weapon, every piece of technology had been built with survival in mind. Show me the Quantum's lip drives, Park ordered as he walked through the engineering bay of the Eternal Dawn. Chief Engineer Beek Myra, a small woman with oil-stained hands and brilliant eyes, led him to a massive cylindrical device that hummed with barely contained energy. Standard Council ships need 15 minutes to charge their jump drives, she explained. Our ships can slip through quantum space in under 3 seconds. We can be anywhere, hit anything, and be gone before they know we were there. And the adaptive hull plating? Mira grinned and slapped the wall beside her. Living metal, grown from modified Earth's organisms. It absorbs energy weapons and redistributes the force across the entire hull. Hit us once, it learns. Hit us twice, it adapts. Hit us 3 times, and the energy just bounces right back at them. Park nodded slowly. The Council doesn't know about any of this? Sir, the Council thinks we're still using chemical rockets and steel armor. They haven't bothered to actually study humanity since we first left Earth. Why would they? We're just insects to them, Good Park said. Let them keep thinking that, while Park prepared the fleet. Captain Yunhana was fighting a different kind of war. She sat in a dark room on a station orbiting Jupiter, facing a holographic image of a creature that looked like a 6-legged fox with scales instead of fur. This was Counselor Ven of the Sindari, one of the 3 species secretly opposing the ultimatum. You take a great risk contacting us, Ven said, his voice a soft hiss. If the Council discovers this conversation, my entire species will be punished. Then let's make sure they don't discover it, Hannah replied. Tell me about the servant races. How many of them are unhappy with Council rule? Ven made a sound that might have been laughter. All of them. Do you know what the Council does to species that resist? They don't just defeat them, they break them. They take away their history, their culture, their pride. They turn proud civilizations into slaves. His eyes glittered in the darkness. Every servant race remembers what they used to be, and every one of them dreams of being free. Would they fight? If we gave them the chance? Some would. Many would. Ven leaned closer to the camera. But they need hope first. They need to see that the Council can be beaten. Give them that, Captain, and you may find that humanity is not as alone as you think. The transmission ended, and Hannah sat in silence for a long moment. Then she began composing messages to a dozen different worlds, offering something the Council had spent millennia trying to destroy. Hope, on the colony world of New Busan, a young engineer named Kong Jie worked through another sleepless night. Her laboratory was a mess of cables, screens, and half-assembled devices. Coffee cups covered every flat surface. Her team of 12 had been working for 6 months on a project that most people said was impossible. The simulation is ready, her assistant called out. Jie walked to the main display, her heart pounding. On the screen, a model of a Council warship floated in empty space. Next to it, a small device no bigger than a human fist. Activate it, she ordered. The device pulsed once with blue light. On the screen, the Council warship went dark. Engines, weapons, life support, everything shut down at once. It worked, her assistant whispered. It actually worked. GA stared at the display, hardly daring to believe it. For 300 years, the Council had forced every member species to use the same standardized technology, the same ship designs, the same computer systems, the same power cores. They said it was for efficiency. For unity, they never realized it was also a weakness. Her device, she called it the equalizer, could broadcast a targeted electromagnetic pulse on frequencies that only affected Council technology. One burst could disable an entire fleet without harming the crews. It was the great equalizer, turning the Council's 10,000 ships into 10,000 floating coffins. How long until we can build a full-scale version? She asked. 6 weeks. Maybe 5 if we don't sleep. GA smiled grimly. Then I hope you weren't planning on sleeping. Back on Earth? Ambassador Beek Sunho was preparing for his most important performance. He stood before the General Assembly of the United Earth Government, facing 2,000 representatives from every nation and colony in human space. They were afraid. He could see it in their eyes, hear it in their whispers. The Council's ultimatum had shaken them all. I know you're scared, he began, his voice calm and steady. I'm scared too. The enemy we face is ancient, powerful, and ruthless. They have destroyed civilizations that were old when our ancestors were still learning to walk upright. He paused, letting the fear sink in. But I want you to remember something. 300 years ago, when humanity first left Earth, we were told that space would kill us. that we were too fragile, too weak, too primitive to survive among the stars. He spread his hands. We're still here. We've built colonies on 100 worlds. We've created technologies that would seem like magic to our ancestors. We've done what everyone said was impossible over and over again. He stepped forward, his eyes burning with conviction. The Council thinks they know us. They think they can predict what we'll do. They're wrong. They've never faced a species like humanity before, and by the time they realize their mistake, it will be too late. The assembly erupted in cheers. The storm was gathering. Humanity was ready to face it. The Kepler system was supposed to be an easy target. It sat at the edge of human space. Far from Earth, far from any major military presence, the only thing there was a small mining outpost on an asteroid, home to about 3,000 workers and their families. The Council's military commanders chose it precisely because it was weak. We will destroy the outpost and everyone in it. The Dominion fleet commander announced to his officers, "The humans will see what happens to those who defy the Council. They will beg for mercy." 300 Dominion warships jumped into the Kepler system on the 42nd day after the ultimatum. They were massive vessels, each one the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Against them, the mining outpost had exactly 4 patrol boats and a handful of mining lasers. The Dominion commander smiled as his fleet moved into attack formation. This would be over in minutes. He was wrong, Admiral. Park Doan had been waiting in the asteroid belt for 9 days. His fleet was small, just 60 ships hiding among the rocks and ice. They had powered down all non-essential systems, drifting in silence like ghosts. The Council's sensors, designed to detect standard engine signatures and energy emissions, saw nothing but empty space. Park watched the Dominion fleet on his tactical display. 300 ships, 5 times his number. Any sane commander would have retreated. Park was not feeling particularly sane today. "All ships," he said quietly into his command channel. "Weapons hot. Prepare for quantum slip on my mark." 60 acknowledgments came back. 60 crews ready to fight and die. Mark, the human fleet vanished from the asteroid belt and reappeared directly behind the Dominion formation. They were so close that the enemy ships filled their viewports, so close that they could see individual hull plates and weapon ports. "Fire," Park ordered. 60 ships opened fire at once. Plasma cannons, railguns, missile batteries, everything humanity had built poured into the rear of the Dominion fleet. The first volley destroyed 40 ships before the enemy even knew they were under attack. The Dominion commander screamed orders, trying to turn his fleet around, but human ships were already slipping away, vanishing and reappearing somewhere else. They were everywhere and nowhere, striking from impossible angles, disappearing before return fire could find them. "What is happening?" The Dominion commander roared. Where are they coming from? No one could answer him. Captain Yoon Hannah led the boarding assault. Her shuttle slammed into the hull of the Dominion flagship, and cutting lasers burned through the metal in seconds. She was the first one through the breach, her rifle already firing. The corridor beyond was chaos. Dominion soldiers stall. Insect-like creatures with hard shells and multiple arms rushed to meet the invaders. They had numbers and home advantage. They did not have humanity's million-year legacy of violence. Hannah moved through them like water through rocks. She had trained for this her entire life, learning every form of combat humanity had ever invented. The Dominion soldiers were strong, but they had evolved on a peaceful world where cooperation was survival. They had never needed to fight for their lives. Humans had never known anything else. "Push forward," she shouted to her team. "Bridge is 2 levels up." Behind her, 50 Marines followed, fighting through the ship deck by deck. They took casualties, good people falling to enemy fire, but they never stopped moving, never slowed down. A Dominion officer grabbed Hannah from behind, its 4 arms trying to crush her against its armored chest. She twisted, drove her combat knife into a gap in its shell, and felt the creature go limp. "Your ancestors ran from predators," she said to its body as she stepped over it. "Mine hunted them for sport." Outside, the battle had become a massacre. The Dominion fleet, designed for overwhelming force, had no answer for enemies who could teleport. Human ships appeared, fired, and vanished before retaliation could arrive. The adaptive hull plating absorbed the shots that did connect. Learning and adjusting with every hit, Admiral Park stood on his bridge, watching ship after ship disappear from the enemy formation. He felt no joy, only cold determination. "Flagship status?" he asked. "Captain Yoon's team has reached the bridge," his tactical officer reported. "They're securing the commander now." Park nodded. "Signal the remaining enemy ships. Tell them they can surrender or they can die. Their choice." 50 ships chose surrender. The rest tried to run. They didn't get far. When the battle ended, the human fleet had lost 11 ships. The Dominion had lost 250. 50 more drifted powerlessly in space, their crews waiting to be taken prisoner. It was the worst defeat in the Dominion's 10,000-year history. And it had happened in less than 4 hours. The footage spread across the galaxy within days. On 100 worlds, servant races watched human ships dance through the Council's finest fleet like wind through leaves. They saw the mighty Dominion, the enforcer of Council, law for millennia, brought to its knees by a species that shouldn't have been able to fight at all. On the slave world of Korath, workers stopped their labors to watch the battle replay on smuggled screens. On the factory planet of Sindari Prime, assembly lines went silent as millions witnessed the impossible. On the prison moon of Velith, guards and prisoners alike stared in stunned disbelief. "They can be beaten," someone whispered. The word spread like fire. For the first time in 50,000 years, the galaxy dared to hope. On the Dominion flagship, now in human hands, Captain Yoon Hanna stood over the captured commander. He was bound, his wings broken, his pride shattered. He stared at her with something she had never seen in a council species before. Fear. "How?" he demanded. "How did you do this?" "You are nothing. You are children. You should not exist." Hannah knelt down so she could look directly into his compound eyes. "We are what happens when evolution rewards aggression for 1,000,000 years," she said quietly. "We are what happens when a species has to fight for every single day of survival. We are the monsters that other monsters have nightmares about." She stood up and walked toward the door, and we're just getting started. Admiral Park received a report an hour later. He read it twice, then allowed himself a small smile. The Council had wanted to make an example of humanity. Instead, humanity had made an example of them. Phase 1 was complete. Now, the real war could begin. The Council chamber had not seen such chaos in 10,000 years. The 12 ruling species sat in their ancient seats, surrounded by holographic displays showing the destruction at Kepler's ring. The images played on repeat. Dominion ships exploding. Human vessels appearing from nowhere, the flagship falling silent. Over and over, the same nightmare. "This is unacceptable." The Dominion representative thundered, his wings beating with rage. "We demand immediate retaliation. Every Council ship must be mobilized. These humans must be exterminated. And how do you suggest we fight an enemy we cannot see coming?" The Velith leader replied coldly. "Your fleet had 300 ships. They lost 250 to 60 human vessels. At that rate, they could destroy our entire armada. They got lucky. It will not happen again. You said the same thing before the battle." The argument continued for hours. Some demanded total war. Others urged caution. And in the back of the chamber, 3 representatives sat in careful silence, watching the empire they had served for millennia begin to crack. Counselor Ven of the Sindari waited until the session ended, then slipped away through a private corridor. In a small room, far from any recording device, he activated a secure communication channel. Ambassador Beek Sunho's face appeared on the screen. "The Council is divided," Ven reported. "The Dominion wants blood, but the others are afraid. They've never faced an enemy who could hurt them before. They don't know how to respond." "What about the silence?" Beek asked. His voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. "We've heard rumors about a super weapon." Then scales rippled with what might have been fear. "The silence is real. It was used twice in our history, against species that resisted too well. It can. Sterilize an entire star system. Everything dies. Stars, planets, moons, nothing survives. Would they use it against Earth? The hardliners are pushing for it. But the weapon requires unanimous council approval, and right now 3 species are blocking the vote. Ven leaned closer to the camera. The Velith, the Komori, and my own people. We will not vote for genocide. Beak nodded slowly. Then we need to keep the council divided. The longer they argue, the more time we have. There is something else, Ven said. The servant races are watching. The battle footage has spread everywhere. For the first time in generations, they are talking about resistance. Not just whispers anymore, real planning, real organization. If you can win another victory, a big one, they might actually rise up. We're working on something, Beak said. Something that could change everything. I hope so, Ambassador. Because if the Council unites, if they use the silence... Ven trailed off. Please hurry, on New Busan. Kang Jie had not slept in 4 days. The full-scale equalizer was nearly completed device, the size of a small shuttle that could disable every council ship within 1,000,000 kilometers. Her team had worked around the clock, driven by coffee, fear, and desperate hope. Final calibration complete, her assistant announced. It's ready for testing. Jie stared at the device. It was not beautiful, just a metal cylinder covered in cables and antennae. But if it worked, it would be the most powerful weapon humanity had ever created. We only have one shot at this, she said. If the test fails, the Council will learn about it. They'll adapt. We'll lose our advantage. It won't fail. Her assistant's voice was confident. We've run the simulations 1,000 times. The Council's standardized technology is their greatest weakness. They just never realized it because no one ever thought to exploit it. Jie touched the cylinder, feeling the hum of power beneath the metal. Her grandmother had told her stories about the old wars on Earth. When humans fought humans with weapons that could destroy cities, those weapons had been born from fear and hatred. This weapon was born from hope. Prepare for transport, she ordered. Admiral Park needs this delivered within 48 hours. On Earth, President Choi Yoon-ji was fighting her own battle. The War Council had split into factions. Some wanted to press the advantage immediately, striking Council homeworlds before the enemy could recover. Others warned that escalation would unite the Council and guarantee the use of the silence. We have them on the defensive, General Ru Sayunghua argued, slamming his fist on the table. Every day we wait, they grow stronger. We need to hit them now, hard, before they realize how vulnerable they really are. And if we push too hard, we give the hardliners exactly what they need. Foreign Minister Oyerim countered. Right now, 3 council species are blocking the genocide vote. If we start bombing their homeworlds, we lose that support. President Choi listened to both sides without comment. When the shouting finally died down, she spoke. We're not going to bomb anyone's homeworld, she said. Not yet. Not unless they force us to. She pulled up a holographic display showing a massive space station at the heart of Council territory. Instead, we're going to do something they'll never expect. We're going to hit the Nexus. The room went silent. The Nexus was the Council's military headquarters, the most heavily defended location in the galaxy. Attacking it was considered impossible. Not to destroy it, Choi continued. To show them that we can reach it whenever we want. That no place is safe from us. That all their power and all their history means nothing if we decide to take it away. That's insane, someone muttered. Yes, Choi agreed. That's the point. Across the galaxy, the servant races were beginning to move. On Korath, miners sabotaged their equipment, slowing production to a crawl. On Sindari Prime, factory workers produced weapons that mysteriously disappeared before reaching Council hands. On the prison moon of Velith, guards looked the other way as prisoners organized resistance cells. It was not a revolution, not yet, but it was the beginning of one. Captain Yoon Hannah received reports from her intelligence network with growing amazement. Species that had been slaves for thousands of years were suddenly finding their courage. The battle at Kepler's Ring had shown them that the Council was not invincible. They're waiting for us, she told Admiral Park during their planning session. If we can win at the Nexus, if we can humiliate the Council in their own territory, then the whole galaxy might rise up, Park finished. He studied the tactical displays, running scenarios through his mind. The mission was incredibly dangerous. Success was far from certain, but humanity had never let impossible odds stop them before. "Contact Engineer Kang," he said finally. "Tell her we need the Equalizer ready for combat deployment. We're going to give the galaxy something to believe in." The countdown. 2. The final battle had begun. The Nexus was the heart of the Council's power. It floated in the center of a heavily guarded star system, surrounded by defense platforms, minefields, and a permanent fleet of over 1,000 warships. For 50,000 years, no enemy had ever come within a light year of it. The very idea was laughable. Admiral Park Dohan was not laughing. He stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, watching his fleet assemble at the edge of human space. 40 ships, the best they had, crewed by volunteers who knew they might not come home. Behind them, carried in a specially modified transport, sat the Equalizer. "Final systems check complete. Captain Yoon Hana reported from her position beside him." "All ships ready for quantum slip?" Park nodded slowly. They had run the simulation 100 times. The plan was simple. Slip into the system, activate the Equalizer to disable the defense fleet, board the Nexus, capture the Council leaders, and broadcast a message to the galaxy. Simple did not mean easy. "Open a channel to all ships," Park ordered. One last time, his face appeared on screens across the fleet. Thousands of eyes watched him, waiting. "You all know why we're here," he began. 3 months ago, the Council told us to surrender or die. They thought we would break. They thought wrong." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Today, we're going to show them what happens when you threaten humanity. We're going to walk into the most heavily defended place in the galaxy and take it from them. Not because we want power. Not because we want revenge. Because someone has to teach the galaxy that freedom is worth fighting for." He straightened his shoulders. "Some of us won't come back. I know that. You know that. But the ones who fall today will be remembered forever as the men and women who changed everything." His voice hardened. "Now, let's go make history." The quantum slip drives activated. 40 ships vanished from human space and reappeared directly inside the Nexus defense perimeter. Alarms screamed across 1,000 Council ships. Commanders shouted orders, crews scrambled to battle stations, weapon systems charged to full power. But before a single shot could be fired, a pulse of blue light washed across the system. The Equalizer did its work. Every Council ship went dark. Engines died. Weapons powered down. Life support flickered. 1,000 vessels became 1,000 floating tombs, helpless and silent in the void. "All defense ships disabled," Hannah reported, her voice tight with controlled excitement. "The Nexus is unprotected." Park allowed himself a single moment of relief. Then he pushed it aside. The hardest part was still ahead. All boarding teams. Launch. Captain Yoon Hana led the assault on the Council chamber itself. Her shuttle crashed through the Nexus's observation dome, and she was moving before the debris stopped falling. Her team of 50 Marines followed, spreading out to secure the massive circular room where the 12 Council leaders sat in stunned disbelief. "Don't move," Hannah ordered, her rifle sweeping across the assembled rulers. "Anyone who resists dies." The Valith leader rose slowly, his crystal body pulsing with fury. "This is impossible. Our defenses, your defenses, are floating dead in space." Hannah cut him off. "Your fleet can't help you. Your guards can't help you. For the first time in 50,000 years, you're completely alone. You cannot do this," the Dominion representative hissed. "You are nothing. You are insects. We will destroy you." Hannah walked calmly, to stand directly in front of him. She was half his size, fragile-looking compared to his armored bulk. But she showed no fear. "Your species spent 1,000,000 years at the top of your food chain," she said quietly. "You never had to fight. Never had to struggle. Never had to evolve." She smiled, and there was nothing warm in it. Humanity spent 1,000,000 years clawing our way up from the mud, fighting every step of the way. We earned our survival. You were just given yours. Admiral Park's voice came through her earpiece. Chamber secured. Secured, sir. Good, prepare for broadcast. Minutes later. Every communication channel in the galaxy carried the same image. Admiral Park Doan standing in the council chamber. The 12 rulers of the Orion Arm kneeling before him. For 50,000 years, Park began. His voice carrying to 1,000,000,000 ears, the Galaxy Council has ruled through fear. They crushed any species that dared to challenge them. They called it peace. They called it stability. But it was only ever about power. He walked among the kneeling leaders, his footsteps echoing in the silent chamber. Humanity came to the stars looking for partners, not masters. We wanted to trade, to learn, to explore together. Instead, we found tyrants who demanded we kneel or die. He stopped in the center of the room. We chose neither. Today, we release these leaders unharmed. Not because we are weak, but because we are not them. We do not rule through terror. We do not demand submission. We ask only for the right to be free, and we extend that same right to every species the Council has enslaved. He turned to face the camera directly. Not with humanity's surrender, but with a new understanding. The galaxy does not belong to the Council anymore. It belongs to everyone brave enough to claim their freedom. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was like iron. Threaten us again, and we will not be so merciful. The broadcast ended, but its effects had just begun. On Korath, slaves threw off their chains and stormed the governor's palace. On Sindari Prime, workers seized the factories and declared independence. On the prison moon of Velith, prisoners and sympathetic guards together raised the flag of freedom. Across 100 worlds, species that had been servants for millennia rose up in a single day. The Council's empire, built on fear, crumbled the moment that fear disappeared. The Velith, the Sindari. And the Komori formally announced their withdrawal from the Council. They sent ambassadors to Earth asking to join something new, a Free Worlds Compact, where species would be partners instead of masters and slaves. Within months, the compact had grown to include 30 species. Within a year, over 100. The Council still existed, but it was a shadow of what it had been. The remaining members quarreled among themselves, their unity shattered, their power broken. They would never threaten anyone again. On Earth, President Choi Yoon-ji addressed a crowd of millions in New Seoul. Behind her, ships from dozens of species filled the sky, former enemies, new allies, and curious observers from across the stars. They thought we were young, she said, her voice carrying across the plaza. They thought we were weak. They thought we would submit like all the others. She smiled, and the crowd roared. They forgot something important. Humanity doesn't just survive. We overcome. Admiral Park watched the celebration from orbit. Standing on the bridge of the eternal dawn, beside him, Captain Yoon handed Admiral Yoon, now, after a well-deserved promotion, studied the tactical displays out of habit. What happens now? She asked. Park thought about it for a long moment. They had won the impossible victory. They had freed the galaxy. They had proven that even the mightiest tyrant could fall. Now we build something better, he said finally. Something worth all the blood we spilled to get here. Below them, Earth turned slowly, blue and green and full of life. Above them, the stars stretched out forever, full of possibilities. Humanity had declared war on the galaxy's rulers and won. But the real work, the work of building a free future, was just beginning. And if there was one thing humans were good at, was building things that lasted.